AI might be able to replace like assistants or paralegals at some point, but how is AI going to walk into a courtroom?
Well, I think there was one case where I think some guy in California actually tried that. Like he had AI represent him in court and the judge was like, get out of my courtroom. And we've seen cases go horribly wrong where they've just hallucinated cases and, lawyers haven't double checked. I don't think AI is a substitute for judgment. I know that there are people that will argue about that. I don't think it's a substitute for judgment. I don't think that they're going to walk into a courtroom, at least not yet. I think where it will come down to is, unfortunately, the younger lawyers that are coming out, 1 through 5 at least, particularly in big law where you're doing on the litigation side doc review or deposition summaries or all of those things. That can all be done by AI.
Well, that's true. And you can summarize medical records. But that, as a law firm owner, is actually helpful. Hey there, hot messes. Welcome to Success of a Hot Mess, where we celebrate the art of juggling life's chaos and coming out on top. I'm Stacey Issacs, your host and resident rock star lawyer, dance mom, and survivor. We're going to dive into candid conversations about conquering challenges, embracing our unique selves, and finding success in the beautiful mess of it all. Good morning. Welcome to this episode of Success of a Hot Mess, brought to you by workinjuryrights.com. I am so thrilled to have an old friend, not old, but I've known her a long time, Miss Danielle Garno. She is fashion, beauty, and luxury goods lawyer, chief legal officer, entrepreneur, mom of many girls. Many girls. And you're perfectly on brand for this podcast because I love to talk about balancing all of it, a career, the kids, everything. Thanks for coming, Danielle.
Thanks for having me. This is so exciting. And yeah, I think we might be a little bit old, but I think we
all right, let's just
still look amazing.
Yes, let's just say we're middle-aged. Yes. That's good. But we go back to the days of the University of Miami, and we both took kind of similar but different paths, both attorneys. But today we're going to talk about you. I know that you have kind of branded yourself very successfully as the fashion lawyer. So let's just dive in and tell me how you went from law school right into that area of law. Fashion.
So that is a long and winding story. I don't think my path was definitely not linear. I think a lot of us really who are lawyers, don't take linear paths. I keep telling my students, because I am a professor at the University of Miami in law school, an adjunct. And they're all freaked out about getting jobs. I'm like, don't worry. Like, the first place where you're going to be is not going to be where you end up, and there's going to be a long, winding path. So mine was long and winding. I'll shorten it. Basically, started out, did insurance defense law for a year, didn't love that. Did employment law out in California, didn't love that. Transferred. The story is actually, I'm at Greenberg in Los Angeles, and we had an associate happy hour.
And that's Greenberg Traurig, for those of you who don't know.
Yes. Greenberg Traurig, big law. I went from very, very small law to big law. So I'm in the employment group and I'm not loving what I'm doing. And so we have an associate happy hour, and I have just enough alcohol to get up the courage to ask the managing partner, hey, do you mind if I can switch to commercial litigation? And I think he had just enough to drink that was like, yeah, that's a great idea. So thankfully switched into commercial litigation. And that was really my first foray into working with fashion brands, because I was doing a lot of anti-counterfeiting work for big brands like Richemont, DVF, Chloe. We seized the most incredible fake Chloe padlock bag I've ever seen in my entire life, but that was back in the day. And that was really my first foray into that. And then I was doing that for a while and I loved it. And then met my husband, and he's in Florida, and I decided it was pretty cruel to make him come and move out to LA and take the California bar. I was already barred in Florida, so it just made sense that I moved back to Florida. I moved back to Florida, and we're not doing any of that anti-counterfeiting work. At the time I moved back, it was 2007, so the economy was tanking, and it was like all hands on deck for, you could either do tobacco litigation, you could do broker-dealer securities litigation, you could do condo litigation.
Bankruptcy, probably.
Yeah. That was its own separate thing. And then, did I say tobacco? Okay. Chinese drywall. That was the other one,
Oh,
right?
that's here in Parkland.
Yeah. So that was, so this, yeah. So I think everybody at some point in time was like dealing with those cases. So it was literally like, pick your poison, right? And I was like, all right, condo. And I did that. And I was like, I got to the point where I mean, I did it for a few years. I was able to learn the Florida, state court system, which is totally different than California. So California's state court is more based on federal briefing schedules and stuff like that. So I was like, all right, did that for 2 years, and I was like, I hate it. Like, for anybody who did condo law back in the day, it was just like the size of the unit didn't move, didn't change from when you did the walk. It was just awful, and I hated it. And I walked into the partner's office, and I was like, I quit. I don't care if I don't have another job. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm done. And so because I'm clearly dramatic, when I opened the door to say I quit, like I threw it open, there was a guy behind the door, and it happened to be the head of, like, the global head of white collar for Greenberg Traurig. And he said, hey, I've got 30 boxes of documents for a bribe that may or may not have happened in, Qatar. Do you want to take a look? And I was like, does it involve a condo? He said, no. I'm like, great, give it to me. So I did I did a lot of white collar investigations work, which I also loved. But the problem is that I wasn't a former prosecutor. I didn't come from state attorney's office. I didn't come from Maine Justice. I didn't come from the U.S. attorney's office. I had zero government experience. So it was going to be really, really hard for me to hold myself out as like the preeminent, white collar lawyer, because I didn't have that experience, and clients want somebody who, has been inside, at least in the government, because of all the connections and everything like that. So I had to figure out what was going to be my next move, how I'm going to distinguish myself from like the amazing 40 other lawyers that sit on the same floor as me, and, what's going to be my unique value proposition. And that's when I sort of took it back to, okay, let's go back to fashion, because at the time in Miami, we were building the design district. A lot of multinational luxury brands have their Latin American headquarters in Miami. We were doing a ton of, every hotel that's going up is branded, right? So we were doing a ton in the creative design space. We had Art Basel and everything. So I figured it was a really good time to kind of go back to my roots and sort of figure out what was going on in the market. So when I went up to management in Greenberg, with here's my business, here's my business plan, I want to be, I want to do fashion. And they kind of looked at me and was like, pat on the head, like, that's cute.
You're so cute.
Yeah, you're so cute.
Can you tell listeners what exactly is fashion law?
Yeah, it's an industry practice. So, there's no code. There's nothing, that has to do with
statute.
There's no statute. It is really an industry practice.
Okay.
So,
do you go to court?
I do, because I'm a litigator. So I'm a litigation hybrid transactional. A litigation transactional hybrid. So I do go to court. So I do on that side, on the litigation side, I'll litigate any commercial contract. But I do a lot of IP litigation, so
intellectual property, listeners. That's what she means. So let's break it down. So somebody is starting a swimsuit line. Mm-hmm. Let's say I'm doing that. I need a fashion lawyer, correct? Or do I need an intellectual property lawyer, or both?
Well, okay. So you need somebody who understands the business. And for somebody to understand, the business, it's usually helps to have somebody who's worked in fashion or has dealt with fashion brands, because, as lawyers, for us to, identify issues, legal issues, and help solve them, because we are problem solvers, you really have to understand how the business works, right? So yes, IP is definitely part of it, but there's also employment. There's also, trade and customs, right? Now everything with the tariffs is, right. The trade and customs people are on fire. It's really everything. So for somebody to go in there and identify those issues for starting, a swimsuit brand, one is, of course, intellectual property. What is protectable? What can I do? Your trademark, are there any designs, that, can get copyright protection? Starting a business, like, are you going to form, an S corp? Are you going to be an LLC? are your website, your terms and conditions. So there's all sorts of things that all sorts of legal issues that you have to be aware of that just a primarily IP lawyer might not identify. So the answer to your question is IP's great, but I would advise that somebody who understands the industry can help you full scale.
So on the fashion law end, is your clientele mostly designers?
Designers, brands, because there's such a crossover in the industry because now everybody's a brand. So you see a lot of celebrities, influencers starting their own brands. You see the crossover in sports, and entertainment. So I do a lot of those sort of deals as well. Like I've done a ton of sneaker deals. I've done, for NBA players, created their sneaker. So it's a whole bunch of things.
And do you have any background in design?
No, I have no background in design. I like what I like. I like, I think, I mean, you have a certain aesthetic, so you like what you like. I can sort of see what brands are going to be popular and what I think are not going to make it. But no, I have absolutely zero artistic skills and creative skills on my own other than lawyering. Yeah.
And you have 4 daughters, correct?
I have 4 daughters, 17, 13. I have twins that are 11.
Okay. Because I have 2, and that's a handful. But do your daughters like the brand Brandy Melville? I know there's a whole documentary on it, right? About
Brandy Hellville? Yeah.
Yeah, their employment practices. But I don't get the aesthetic. No offense, Brandy, but my girls love it.
Mine do too.
It's so basic. There's like 3 colors.
And one size.
Right. One size fits all.
Which is insane to me, given the fact that that's clearly we're not all one size and not all of it is appropriate. And I hate it more than anything. I'm not a fan. I'm almost to the point where they're not allowed to buy Shein. Like that was that's my bright line. Like that's none of that can come into the house. I'm almost there with Brandy Melville. And
Shein is it just all supposed to be knockoffs and it's incredibly cheap and it's like they're using child labor in China or wherever they are?
All the I think that it's all the things. I am not a fan. And that's, between, I'll say alleged theft of intellectual property and, alleged child labor law and flouting trade and customs, all of those things that we're reading in the media, that has been my bright line.
I got you. Okay, so you have branded yourself quite well, DG fashion lawyer, right?
Thanks. Yeah.
I mean, I've watched it over the years, like really grow. And as lawyers, we don't seem to be great at branding. Tell us why you think that is.
I think you're great at branding.
You
found your niche. You are. But I think through law school, we're certainly not taught anything. Or really anything other than how to think, right?
The rule against perpetuities, which is very important.
Right. You use it every day, right?
Yes.
It comes up. Okay. And my experience in big law is that we're not taught that either. We're taught to put our heads down, bill hours. And particularly, I think, as women, it becomes harder because as you're going through your career, we're having kids, right? So, you're at the time you're probably having kids, you're, mid to senior level associate, maybe junior partner. And then you come out and you're like, okay, well, I don't even know how to build a book. I don't even know who I am or what I do, right? So you're not really thinking about building a book, building a practice. You're just there to bill hours, and then you've taken off maternity leave, which has set you back a little bit, and now you've sort of got to come back, refocus, and you come out and you're like, I don't even know where to begin. And I think firms are getting a little bit better with showing them building, trying to build a client book and things like that. But I think that you do it too late because I think that you should always be figuring out who you are as a lawyer and what you want to project both externally to clients and internally. And I don't think that needs to happen later on in your career. I think it has to happen earlier on.
And in what you do, I would venture to guess that you're not arguing a lot, like with your clients or even your opposing counsels. Is it more like a sophisticated type of conversation? Like when I was handling cases, it was very mentally exhausting, screaming at opposing counsels and arguing with clients sometimes. Do you encounter that?
Yeah, I think it's funny because, when I was a younger associate, younger junior partner, and really like heavy into litigation, they're like, "What's it like?" And I'm like, "You're just getting yelled at, like at all times, whether it's opposing counsel, whether it's the judge,
Adjusters.
whether it's your client. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot. It's not my favorite, and being senior now in my career, I was like a senior lawyer. I get to pick and choose. And that was, I think, a big part of why I was left Big Law, is because I want to have more control over my destiny, over my day, and was just, tired of all the BS, actually. And so, yeah, it's very less confrontational now. And I feel like we're building things instead of like everybody trying to like set things on fire and like rip it apart, because as it's very, very contentious.
Very contentious. I've actually told my daughters, go into medicine or something, because this is, it used to be like cute when I was little and my parents were like, you love to argue, you should be an attorney. It sounds cute, but it is very emotionally exhausting. And you can couple that with having your husband as your law partner. Now, your husband's an attorney as well, right?
He is. So it's funny because he was always in, a smaller boutique firm, and then they just merged with a big law firm.
Big one, right?
Yeah. So now he's Big Law, and we've sort of just switched roles. So it's kind of funny.
Okay. So you recently left a big law firm, right?
Mm-hmm.
After 20 years or so?
I've been in Big Law, I would say, plus 20 plus years. Yeah. I spent 15 at Greenberg, and then I just hopped around for the last 5 years at other law firms. So yeah.
So are you now at a small firm, or is it your firm?
So at a small boutique. I'm at a sports and entertainment boutique, and they do really cool things. And it's guys and girls who have other things going on, like they're CEOs or they're CLOs, and they started this thing sort of just really cool, like
passion.
Yeah. And so it was exactly what I was looking for. And it's great. So I can still service my clients in all the areas that they need. I can also pick up more stuff. And now that my rate's flexible, I'm getting way more, work, because, Big Law rates are crazy. And I think with the advent of AI and how that's going, I think clients are going to be way less inclined to start paying those, $1,500, $2,000. I've seen $3,000 an hour.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, speaking of AI, one of our attorneys here, she was asking me once, can I withdraw from a case? The client keeps citing law from ChatGPT, and it's so vague, and she's telling me I'm wrong, and I said absolutely, withdraw from that case. Like, I personally do not think AI can replace, at least not accident attorneys. You might be able to AI might be able to replace like assistants or paralegals at some point, but how is AI going to walk into a courtroom?
Right. Well, I think there was one case where I think some guy in California actually tried that. Like, he had AI represent him in court, and the judge was like, get out of my courtroom. And we've seen cases go horribly wrong where they've just hallucinated cases, and, lawyers haven't double checked. I don't think AI is a substitute for judgment. I know that there are people that will argue with me about that. I don't think it's a substitute for judgment. I don't think that they're going to walk into a courtroom, at least not yet. I think where it will come down to is, unfortunately, the younger lawyers that are coming out, one through five at least, where, at least particularly in Big Law, where you're doing, on the litigation side, doc review or deposition summaries or all of those things, that can all be done by AI. On corporate, I mean, can draft
Well, that's true. And you can summarize medical records. But that, as a law firm owner, is actually helpful. Sorry to my team, but it is helpful. We've actually started staffing people in Colombia for some of the positions, like document review.
Yeah.
These are actually, paralegals in Colombia, and they do some of the work. But I do feel like doctors and lawyers are still safe in terms of AI, but...
Yeah, I mean, look, ChatGPT can push out a pretty decent contract, or at least have the, the main things, and your experience will fill it in. I think that, lawyers of our vintage, because we've seen some
we are vintage
stuff
yeah
over the years, are going to be, you can't replace us, because we just use our judgment, or we can see things, and we can just advise on our experience. I'm worried about the younger generations, to how they're going to get that experience, because it's going to be just basically AI. And I told my kids, because they're like, we're not allowed to have ChatGPT at school, and I'm like, okay, don't use it at school, but like put it on your phones, because you have to learn that language. You have to be able to be fluent in it, because whether we like it or not, it is going to be the future. It's actually not the future. It's here. It's now. Learn it. Get used to it. Figure it out. And I think that that's the way that they're going to be successful.
I'm so jealous that we did not have it in law school. Like, these kids are, I'm not going to say using it word for word for their essays, or just say your entry into law school, those essays. Like, they're definitely using it as maybe an outline, at least.
I would think so. I mean, I don't know. My class, it doesn't matter, because that's not really part of the grading system.
What is your class exactly?
So my class is fashion law. I teach in the spring semester. And a lot of what they do is, I do a sneaky way of sort of getting them prepared to be lawyers, to be accountable. The way that I set it up, and yes, there's the subject matter, of course, but you have to go in and you have to present, like, first assignment's like a fashion law case. So you have to research, put together a PowerPoint. You can do it with, my class is now so big that I have to do it with teams.
This is at the law school?
Yeah.
That's very impressive.
It's fun.
How did you get this?
I was approached, I think I've been doing it like 7-8 years now. I was at Greenberg. The head of the entertainment, arts, and sports law program approached me and said, hey, we really want to have a fashion law, and we want it to be you. And I was like, on top of, I don't know, everything else that I'm doing, like my kid, being a mom, being a wife, being a, big law, building my practice. Sure, I've got time for it.
Is it a night class?
It's usually 5:30 to 7:30. So I went to one of my partners and I ran it by him and I said, what do you think? And he said, Danielle, it's your corner. If you're not going to do it, they're going to ask somebody else, and you might as well protect your corner. I was like, oh, okay. And I have to tell you, it's a lot of work. It brings me so much joy, Stacey. Like, it's so fun. I mean, it also, like, going back to campus where we went to school.
I know. I'm literally jealous.
Yeah. You should come.
I totally would love it. You have to have male students who have crushes on you.
That I don't know.
Oh, come on. Definitely.
That I don't know. I do have a lot of male students, but I was like, maybe it's because, like, it's female. And I was like, that's a great way to, like, meet women. I think it was like,
true.
Yeah.
It's
so
true.
I was like, that's not a bad way. But they're all into it. I mean, like, really, really, every year they get more and more impressive. They're very engaged, very involved, and there's a lot of them. So, I'm always blown away, and it gives me so much energy. Like, it's nice to be around young people.
Absolutely, and to just not be in the grind of work. That that is like an outlet. But they did not offer fashion law at my law school.
No, we didn't have it either. That was not a thing. Not a thing.
So how have you been able to excel so much in your career? And I mean that genuinely, like speaking, getting honored, being a professor. How have you been able to balance that with, like, staying in shape, which you are, looking fabulous, having all these girls who I'm sure they each have all their activities? What is your advice for a woman, a career woman who wants to balance it all?
Well, thank you for that. And Back at you times a million.
Thank you.
It help.
Right.
You know, it's I will be honest, this profession is really not made for parents. I don't even just say women, but I think parents, because your kids, it takes up a lot of time with all the activities and all of the things, and you want to be there. And you know, in the beginning when they were younger, you know, I was traveling a ton, and they sort of, you know, they were born into it, so they were used to it. But it took a village. Like I had amazing nannies. And she was just here, and it was like, she's family. I had her for 10 years, and, you know, she moved on to have her own family, and it was devastating. It was devastating. So it was actually, I think, like the turning point for me, where I was like, okay, I need to personally make a shift. But it really is about help and not asking and asking for help, because I think, you know, for us who are, you know, we're type A, we're super strong, and we're like, you know, okay, we're a badass. Like, I don't need help. I got this. Like, you know, we really don't. And I think it really is important that you have enough security to ask for help, whether that's from, you know, family, colleagues, you know, whoever, because it's essential. Otherwise, you're just going to like burn out and die.
I remember when I had Reese, my first daughter, I went back to work after 12 weeks, and somehow I wound up on a segment of Good Morning America, and it was called Mommy versus Nanny, and I watched it back recently, and the way they spun it at the time, it was like, the baby prefers the nanny. Like, an infant has no idea who is there. The infant sleeps practically all day.
The time.
Yeah, and it was just interesting, and we've seen like all the emanations. Okay, remember when we started, I don't even know that we definitely didn't have like smartphones, maybe a BlackBerry or not even. God. So like you couldn't be reached. I mean, somebody had to call you at the office. It was just such a different world, but I have no shame in asking for help. You know, we had a nanny as well, and my kids turned out just great.
They are amazing. We're really blessed.
Yes. So you would say that you can do it all?
Well, yeah, you can. I mean, you can do whatever you want. Like, whatever you want out of life, I believe that you can do. You just have to figure out what you want and what concrete steps you're going to take to do it. You know, I know a lot of the upcoming generation is like, they don't want to do what you and I did, Stacey. They're like 12 weeks, like F that. I want, 20, right?
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Or like, I'll take 6 months off and, figure it out. They would definitely want a more balanced, whatever that looks like, lifestyle. To me, work-life balance was basically triage, right? It was like, what needs your attention in that moment, like what's on fire, let me go, whether it's work, your life, and do that. It wasn't necessarily like a balance per se. So, I think it's changing. What I want, I think now is changing.
I know that, new associates, like, they don't want to put in the hours that we put in. They look at you like you're crazy.
Crazy.
Yeah. They're like, what? No, it's 5:00.
I'm out.
Yeah. And I just remember, you would get a very dirty look if you were out the door at 5:00. Times have definitely changed.
Yeah.
Do you see yourself doing this for a lot longer?
It's a really good question. Do I see myself doing it for a while? So now I'm at the point where I actually really like what I do. Like, I like the cases that I work on. I like my clients. I get to pick and choose. I get, like I said, I don't have to deal with the BS anymore. So I do like that. I'm also now more focused on the business side of things, which I find to be really interesting. And I'm way more entrepreneurial, I think, than just, corporate. So I'm finding AI technology really interesting. Working with, one of my tech clients, which is, really blowing up right now in, also in the AI space. And I find that to be fascinating. And I like, growing with them and sort of doing operations and that sort of thing, and doing more of the business stuff than actually just pure legal.
And that is exactly what happened to myself and my two partners, But when you are dealing with the business stuff, that also has its own challenges, and hiring people, firing people, all of that stuff. But not handling the cases for me personally has been, kind of life-changing.
I would imagine, because it takes away that, like what we were talking about earlier, is just that constant like fighting, and just, it wears on you.
And, when we first started, we were giving clients our cell phones, and it was just not nonstop. And my kids would be in the car, and it's on Bluetooth, and they're hearing a client curse me off. And, it was very different than it is right now.
Well, that's one way to not ever get them to become a lawyer.
Exactly. Do you still go to SoulCycle? Mm-hmm. I just watched the documentary.
Wait.
You must.
Wait.
It's called The Cult, something like The Cult of SoulCycle. It primarily, the first couple episodes are about how it began, New York and the Hamptons.
Yeah.
Then just the total explosion of it, and how addictive it is. See, we don't have that up here in Broward County. So I used to go to Flywheel in Boca, and I don't know if the SoulCycle people even knew that the owner of Flywheel started as one of the 3 founding partners of SoulCycle, but then they got rid of her, and she went on to found Flywheel. Yeah. But SoulCycle, that documentary is fascinating. You should watch it.
Yeah, I'm a huge documentary. Wait, what channel is it on?
I want to say Max, but
okay,
just Google it. It's like 4 or 5 parts, and
I can't wait.
It shows how their branding was just amazing. The whole inspirational, motivational, the way they hired particular people, and these people became celebrities essentially.
Yeah. So there was a time in my life where I really contemplated going and teaching, but you had to go to New York, you had to be up there for 2 months, and then they teach you. And I was like, I don't know that even with all the kids, I was like, I don't know I could do that. But it was such a huge passion of mine. But yeah, I love it. And it is addicting. And I mean, you're dancing on a bike in the dark, and nobody cares. And I've probably shed more tears in SoulCycle than
That's what they said. See, Flywheel was more competitive.
Yes. You had your leaderboard. Yes. You had to beat,
SoulCycle was dancey, but it definitely catered, it filled a need.
Yeah.
People had a need. If they're not religious, this kind of filled that up. But it's a whole thing.
What are you doing now, Liz? You look amazing.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
I decided this was the year I was going to do gentler workouts. I stopped the running. I do hot Pilates now.
Okay, so I just did that for the first time. Yeah, in Southern California. It was amazing.
But because we're both crazy, I can only work out in a room that's 100 degrees. I can't just walk into a gym.
That's just outside.
I know, but I like the heat and the sweat. And, we're not as young as we were. My knees, they both have tears. It's just, I still have the Peloton. Thank God for Peloton during COVID.
Yeah, I have one too. Now it sits in my garage.
I know, not using it. Having a Peloton it's not a substitute for that class atmosphere. I still like a class.
I'm a class person too. Yeah.
But you guys have everything good in Miami. We don't have Barry's Boot Camp up here. We don't have SoulCycle.
I can't do Barry's anymore for the same reason.
Hard. It's like Orange Theory. I did that forever.
I haven't found a hot Pilates studio though.
You must have down there.
I'm sure we do, but I just haven't. We definitely have hot yoga. The one that I went to in Orange County was awesome. It was so clean. They also have a hot boxing studio and a hot yoga. I mean, I was like, oh, maybe I'll build one out here.
I told my husband the same thing. And then I was like, do you mind if I turn the heat on in the home gym to 105? But it is not just Pilates with blocks. You're lifting weights during the class. It's great. Yeah. I highly recommend. We have to keep looking good, right?
Yeah. I mean, we live in Florida.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I ask a lot of female attorneys if they and I don't need specifics, but have you ever had an almost like Me Too moment where you know, through working with men, experienced any type of inappropriate behaviors by them?
Yes.
It's so crazy. I know.
Yes. Yeah. I can go. I'll go into the one when I think the most memorable was. I was just talking about this the other day. Like, my boss called me eye candy to opposing counsel when I was about to walk into a deposition. He didn't see me, and he said, you know, I was like, "Oh, Joe, are you going to take the deposition?" He's like, "No, I'll let the eye candy handle that one." And I'm like, you know, I didn't melt down. It was funny because I was an employment lawyer.
Oh my God.
The irony.
Yeah.
And opposing counsel, I was on the defense side, and opposing counsel looked at me, he's like, "Do you need me to represent you?" I was like, "No, it's fine. Thank you so much, but it's good." But, you know, then I thought about it as I'm older, and I'm like, what a stupid thing to say. You hired me, and you don't think that, like, I'm anything more than just eye candy? Like, you're an idiot. That just makes you, first of all, highly inappropriate. Second of all, it makes you look like an idiot. So, yeah, that was one. And yeah, there's been quite a few over the years.
Yeah. I mean, have you ever, like, I used to show up at a deposition and they'd be like, "Oh, the interpreter's here." I'm like, I'm not the interpreter.
Can you get me coffee?
Yeah. It's amazing. I just wonder if this new generation of attorneys will experience it, because I feel like now people are so hyper vigilant because of the whole Me Too movement. Like,
it's interesting. It's actually had, I right after that happened, I remember I was talking to, you know, older male partner, and he said, you know, "I just not gonna, you know, work with women anymore, or, you know, or like keep my office door." I was like, that's not what this is about. Like, just like, don't be a creep. Like, you don't. I mean, this shouldn't be hard. Like,
no,
don't be a creep.
They're born creeps, some of them.
Maybe, but like, it's just like, just
it's
keep
just
it
like,
in your
would
pants.
you?
We're fine. Like, just keep everything like.
Yeah, like, would you like someone to talk to your daughter this way? That's what I have asked certain people.
I actually said one, and I was a pretty senior lawyer partner at this time, and a much older partner. What came up to me because this is probably inappropriate to say, and then I was like, then just don't say it. We're gonna,
if you know it's
yeah. I was like, if that's your lead in, like, we're gonna shut this down right now, not for my benefit, really for yours, right?
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we've all kind of experienced that.
Yeah.
Danielle, what do you think has been your secret sauce, besides having help, but the secret sauce in branding yourself so well as the fashion lawyer?
Being intentional. I think that was when I started doing and becoming really focused on fashion. I was very intentional about what I wanted to put out there. I took a public speaking. I hired a public speaking coach because I knew that if I was going to be out doing this, I needed to be the subject matter expert, which means that I needed to go out and speak. And I hated public speaking. Like, I wanted to throw up and die, which is why I make my students do it, because nobody ever made me do it. And
but even though you were a litigator, you still hate or is it larger groups you hate?
Larger groups. Like, when you're one-on-one and the courtroom sort of goes away and you have your argument and you're like, you know, you've got your notes and you've got the things and you're, you know, whatever. It's just different. But going and speaking in front of a group of people where you're standing there alone and people are just staring at you, like, I just open up the floor and eat me. Like, I just wanted to die. So
I feel like, how about when you teach your class? Wasn't that scary?
Less scary because they don't know anything.
And they're like kids mostly.
Yeah, they're kids. And it's fun. Like, I was like, it's fashion law. It's not that serious, right?
Yeah.
But when you're standing in front of a group of, you know, my first speaking engagement was judges and lawyers, like the worst audiences. They, you know everything, right? Mm-hmm. But my first topic was influencer marketing when it first came out, and they knew nothing about it, so I didn't get to field any questions. It was great by design. But yeah, so it's really it's being intentional about, you know, your practice, what you want to do. I would, you know, set goals for myself and check them off. I want to get X amount of speaking engagements. I want to get X amount of write X amount of articles, and do all. You got to do all the things.
I think that's great advice for someone who wants to get out there and become a brand. I mean, we used to be called, first it was the Issacs Law Firm, then it was Ben Harrow and Issacs. And then I have to credit David. He was like, I want people to know what this firm does.
Yeah.
So we are workinjuryrights.com. We still get calls asking if we handle employment cases, but we are work injuries. But there's so much more. I would love to have you on again at a later time, talk about how it's going with the boutique practice. And I can just show up to your fashion law class and like
just show up. I'm also doing a branding masterclass.
I saw that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So that is, I'm trying to distill the 25 years of practice of doing this and branding into an 8-week masterclass where you can get CLE credit.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Where is that?
So we're doing it on Zoom. I partnered with my good friend Heather Monahan, who's, public speaker and TED Talk and wrote 2 books, and she's amazing and really does the coaching for a living, and she's fabulous. I just know the legal part of it. But so, so we do it on Zoom. We just started our class, so we're in the middle of our first cohort, and then we'll set up the next. But
is it just for attorneys or all businesses?
It's for attorneys. But it's definitely transferable. So, I think it would work for, anybody, like any consultant, anything like that. Anybody who really wants to build a brand. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to attend that. So tell the listeners how they can find you, for everything.
Everything. Okay. So find me on let's do Instagram at DJ Fashion Lawyer. DG Fashion Lawyer. I made a branding hiccup when I was early in my career, and I had GT because that was the firm I was associated with. Never do that.
Right.
And I'm on LinkedIn, Danielle Garno. So I have my maiden name on there. And yeah.
And she's a Jersey girl, folks.
I am a Jersey girl.
That's why I like her.
I know.
Thank you so much for coming, Danielle.
Thanks for having me, Stacey. This was so much fun. I really appreciate it.
Next, you'll have your own podcast. Just watch. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Success of a Hot Mess. If you loved what you heard today, be sure to subscribe so you never miss a beat. And hey, sharing is caring. Share this podcast with your friends, family, and anyone who could use a dose of inspiration. Until next time, keep rocking those hot mess moments with style and grace. Cheers.